What's going on, world? It's Paris Solomon here, respecting. Just wanted to give an update following on from my last video where I was thanking everybody who listened to my song In from my EP Clocked that was released 5 years ago now. For whatever reason, the back end of April this year, it suddenly had an uptick. Haven't been able to figure out the source of that uptick. I've looked in the obvious places and spaces. I didn't have an ad spend going on for my Spotify profile, but my Spotify profile is definitely where everything started. So I just suspect that it was like there was a person who told a person who told a person. And I guess I want to say, for all the artists that are watching, it's just about the quality of the music. It's not just about that, but you're probably ahead of a lot of people if you get the quality right. Now, streams don't necessarily indicate quality anyway, but I think in a certain context, especially if you're independent, unsigned, you don't have a team around you, if you are able to get a few thousand streams plus, that's a really big deal. And one of the stats I read was that 80% of songs on Spotify have less than 5,000 streams. So clearly there's a 20% of songs that do, and therefore there's an appetite for good quality music, but it's not necessarily being fed that well, right? But that's where the algorithm comes in. So Spotify itself has several algorithmic playlists. I wanted to talk about the Discover Weekly one because I think it's one of the premier headline playlists that artists seek to get onto to get exposure. Now, it's such an old adage, a cliche thing to say to artists, like, I can't pay you that much, but it'll be good exposure. I can give you a couple drinks, a Coke, but it'll be good, nothing else, it'll be good exposure. I think Spotify algorithm, and specifically getting onto the Discover Weekly playlist, does buck that trend. It is exposure, and you don't know where that could lead effectively. So in terms of what happened with my song, as I say, it had that uptick in late April. Really grateful for just all the people that have listened to it and playlisted it. It had good stats, over 500 playlist ads, 2,000 listeners, about 15,000 streams now, just about, and basically 28 days approximately after that uptick. I mean, the uptick itself was really on the 11th of April. That's when I first noticed. I can see all the patterns in Spotify for artists. So 11th of April is when the uptick really kicked in. I got like 100 listeners, which again for me is massive because I usually get like 4 a month, and I had that consistently for just the whole time I had my Spotify account. And then on the 8th of May, which is actually my birthday, that's when I noticed the Discover Weekly algorithm had been triggered, and I'd had my first play from the Discover Weekly algorithm. Now that's an absolutely massive deal for any independent artist, and the reason being is Discover Weekly is a clever algorithm that basically seeks out people who are likely to like your song based on other similar users who have similar playlists as those people. And the way it's been broken down from my research is that if there's a playlist user number 1 and they have 3 songs, and your song happens to be the song in the middle in their playlist, and then there's playlist user 2, who's a similar demographic, similar music taste, and they have the first 2 songs but they don't have your song in the middle, guess what's going to pop up on playlist user 2's Discover Weekly to discover? It's going to be your song, because from Spotify's perspective, there's a strong likelihood that you're going to enjoy the song. Now, what's powerful about that is, well, first of all, it's taking a lot of the legwork out of it, in terms of trying to figure out what kind of people will like your song, rather than a Facebook advert or a YouTube advert, which is kind of scattergun approach. Discover Weekly is more about people who genuinely would enjoy your song and appreciate your song, and Discover Weekly will it's basically a playlist that's for every Spotify user. It does not mean every Spotify user will like your song, but there'll be a portion of every Spotify user, which probably will, right? So then, what's that? You're talking about maybe 1 million people, I guess. So you're definitely talking about thousands at the beginning. So that's massive exposure. You know, you get streams in places that you never thought you would. You never could really, to be honest. So there's one thing exposure playing at your local club for a Coke, but it's another thing getting exposure from the Spotify algorithmic playlist Discover Weekly, because that's going to send your song across the world basically. Because if there's just a listener across the world who happens to have similar taste to other listeners, then it's going to pop up there. And then depending on how well your song does in Discover Weekly, it'll get pushed even further. Now, if your song has gotten to the Discover Weekly stage, it's already done extremely well, effectively. I mean, people are talking about you need about 20,000 streams on your song to have a shot at Discover Weekly. It's not necessarily just about the streams. I mean, by the time I'd had my first stream on Discover Weekly, I think I was on about 14,000 streams. So it's less than what people have cited. So, you know, there's all number of factors that go into it, like how many people have saved the song onto a playlist, how many times have people played your song, if they played it more than once. You know, what's your stream to listener ratio? What's your save to listener ratio? You know, some of my stats did go spot on with what you see elsewhere in terms of you need like a 20+% of save to listener ratio to really trigger the algorithm. Yeah, that fit, but then my streams didn't. I wasn't doing loads of releases. I haven't done. I've been looking for a producer for like my whole career. You know, and it got to a really silly point. I hope to tell that story one time, but I wasn't actively releasing music or promoting my page like that. Anytime I'd have a reaction from somewhere online, I'd always go on my Facebook page /Paris Solomon and talk about it, but I haven't been an active musician like that. So, you know, I can't say exactly why or how. I can just say that people love the song. And apparently, if you don't get your song into release radar, which is when you get the unreleased songs and then you put them in front of Spotify, and then the playlist curators decide whether they're going to put it on release radar, which will obviously pop up to loads of people and give you an excellent chance of getting into the Discover Weekly algorithm. Apparently, if you don't get it into release radar, which I didn't because I was ignorant to the Spotify way of marketing, I'll hold my hands up and say that, you know, I was doing the old school, asking DJs and other gatekeepers, which, you know, only gets you so far, you know, to pay attention to my song. Now, they say that you will not get into Discover Weekly if you haven't hit release radar, and you know, it's been 2 weeks since release, or it's been 4 weeks since release. Guys are saying on YouTube, and these are knowledgeable people that taught me everything I needed to know once this uptick happened, because I was just ignorant of this world. And they say it's impossible, you know, after 4 weeks to end up on the algorithm. Well, I have to say, my song In has beaten that 4 week estimation. It's been 5 years, yeah. So that's 250 weeks. 250 weeks after release has hit the algorithm. And I say all this to say that there's almost no rules in music. Just make your music quality. And I think there's a level of subjectivity. Of course, I would always say my song's good, and then maybe the gatekeepers would say it's not. So, you know, we'd be caught in a kind of tug of war, yeah? So it's all subjective. But it gets to a point where you've been doing it long enough, you've been working your craft long enough, where it's like, nah. Objectively, I can say objectively this is a good song. And then, you know, you can put that good song onto Spotify, and then the numbers won't lie, basically, because the average listener is not so interested in the agendas. They just want the joy out of the music, and they're not going to necessarily suppress or hold back or stifle quality things. So that's I think the most beautiful thing about hitting the Discover Weekly playlist. And now know that I'm no longer in this subjective space, at least with that song. It's not just about my opinion against whoever, you know, is in the music industry or the gatekeeper. It's not just our two opinions. It's now moving into an objective truth, an objective reality, because the net is cast a lot wider. Yeah, that's a powerful thing for someone who's on a lower level of artistry, where you're really battling against the subjective people. And, you know, that's the thing that signed artists have over unsigned artists. They have the marketing machines behind them to make people move from a subjective place and really objectively believe in your song. What I'm trying to say. So you know the marketing can make people believe that you're the best thing since sliced bread. You very well might be, but I'm just saying that without the marketing, people would definitely need convincing. It's hard for somebody who doesn't have an established brand to convince people, especially in this era where people have short attention spans, and I think there's 20,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. Yeah, so yeah, it's worth it. You know, it's worth it to just follow your gut when you know your song is quality. Put it out there anyway, despite what people might say or do or any setbacks. There were so many setbacks with me trying to release that song. It was way harder than it needed to be, and that's you know that's just one of the challenges having a good team and having people who believe in the vision, and that's priceless. You can't pay for that. So, you know, if you have that in your corner, just keep making your quality music then, and you know it will get picked up by somebody, especially if you're prolific. And if you want to say I'm lucky because I'm not prolific right now, and my song was picked up after a ridiculous amount of time, then yeah, you're right. 100% agree with you. And I want you to believe that you can also be lucky too, you know, because I always had that belief in me that I was a lucky person, you know what I'm trying to say. So it's music game, there's no rules, man. Take a little bit of luck, pray, quality, um, and you know get some impact, and you know you'll get that. Finally the gaslighting will stop because you'll be like, okay, objectively this was clearly a good song, and not just a good song, it's a very good song. You know, it's not just a decent song, it's I or you know, you can't debate that, no more. So that was good for me to kind of get that peace of mind. um and yeah, I appreciate everybody that's listening to the song. I have put the lyrics to it as well on there on Spotify. So definitely check that out as well if you want to train how to rap fast. And you know, I'm just thinking about my next release, and I'll do it much better than I did last time. No release radar, looking in the wrong places. You know, I kind of have an idea of what works now. So yeah, we'll see what happens with my song RE Discover Weekly, but it's made it there now. I'm not. I can't expect anything. I definitely didn't expect the uptick of streams that I have now. So the future really is unknown. You just have to leave it up to the fate and chance. And it might be a 5 year wait, it might be 10 years, it might be 2 minutes. You know, your time, or at least your uptick or your sign that you have what it takes will come. All right, people. So it's peace. Just wanted to, you know, give that message for the artists out there, and just know that there's no fixed rules. People can make a educated guess, yeah, but for a song to uptick after 5 years in this day and age, it's not really, you know, it's unheard of, right? So there's no rules, man. Just keep making your music. It's a spiritual thing for me, to be honest, versus ego. It's more spiritual for me. That's my motivation. It's a piece of me. It's a piece of my energy that I put out there. The ego side of things is not me, and I do think a lot of the industry is geared towards the ego side. So you know, I'm happy to kind of be in my space with connecting directly to the users, to the listeners, to the supporters, to people that love the song. They love the music, not they don't really need the ego in there. Yeah, it's a safer space, trust me. All right.